A short while ago, I saw this video by a YouTuber called Final Facts with Alyssa, and she was going off on how Kavanaugh was the worst person ever, and in her list of things she doesn't like about him, she mentioned climate change. So I decided to counter all her claims, and I made a video to prove her otherwise. I also included in this video climate change, global warming, and concerns that people have about it. So I decided to take that portion out of that video and make a separate video about global warming and climate change. So this clip coming up is from that video I made. It's not something separate I just did, but I want you guys to know, even though I do take a biblical perspective, for those of you who are atheists or just don't believe in God but are still willing to listen, I also use a scientific view. So there's both views in here, and as always, I have my sources available in the description box so you can see where I got my information and look it up for yourself. Hopefully this helps a lot of you out, because there's just so much mass media and hysteria going on about global warming, and even though we are guilty of causing some changes in the environment, it is not as apocalyptic and catastrophic as the media does portray it. This is the greenhouse effect. The sun is responsible in powering the Earth's climate by radiating energy in short wavelengths, but only 1/3 of the solar energy reaches the top of the Earth's atmosphere. The rest goes back to space. The rest is absorbed by the Earth's surface. But to balance this energy in the atmosphere, the Earth has to radiate the same amount of energy back to space. The sun is hot, the Earth is cold. So the energy that the sun gives is in short wavelengths, and because the Earth is cold, the wavelengths will be longer. This energy that the Earth gives is called thermal radiation. That's the heat that's emitted by land and ocean. The reason it's called a greenhouse effect is because the walls of a greenhouse keeps warm air inside. The temperature inside increases. This is an article from Masters University. And I just want to say that when you have a biblical perspective on something like climate change, you get to see how much people blow stuff out of proportion. And climate change is one of them. I do agree that humans have contributed in damaging a lot of the earth. It was given to us to take care of and be responsible for, but humans are not responsible for the entire damage of the earth solely. So it's not like anyone can say that we're 90% at fault. I don't think so. This is like 50-50 here. We did our part, but the earth did its part too. But anyway, there's biblical and scientific evidence that suggests that there was an ice age in recent past, and the earth has been warming ever since. For instance, there were massive ice sheets covering most of the North American continent, and we have evidence that glaciers carved out large valleys. The usual discussions of global warming do not take these observations into account, because the conventional belief in science is that the earth is very old, like billions and billions. For instance, the melting of glaciers in Montana's Glacier National Park is thought to be caused by current global warming, but a biblical view of Earth history suggests that this is due to the after effects of the ice age that resulted from Noah's flood. Further down it says, when all the causes of global warming are considered, it is controversial whether carbon dioxide has contributed significantly to the overall warming of the Earth. Interestingly, in a recent article in National Geographic, it was stated that more than 9 out of 10 climate scientists agree that carbon emissions contribute to global warming. Considering that there easily could be hundreds to thousands of climate scientists in the US alone, this suggests that there are dozens or hundreds of climate scientists who disagree that carbon emissions contribute to global warming. Dr. Stephen Goldmer is a climate scientist with a PhD in atmospheric science. He is a creationist who's been keeping tabs on a global temperature and noticed that there were cycles of cooling and heating over the last 2 centuries. It says here he noticed a trend in the data suggesting that in each case the temperatures level off and a new equilibrium or balance is reached. But if you don't want a creationist point of view, here it is on climate.gov from a scientific point of view. Same chart. Take a look. The temperature has been compensating on and off, on and off. And to really make your veins bulge right now, both the Bible and science point to a beginning of the universe that includes the earth and heavens. Both the Bible and science agree that the current universe will come to an end involving heat. Science shows that the universe will end in heat death, and the Bible declares that the basic elements in the universe will melt away. Both the Bible and science reveal that man by nature is destructive, and his destructive nature needs to be controlled and corrected. After the flood, God promised Noah that he would never again destroy the earth by water, but he also promised that there would be stability in the earth by saying that the seasons would continue. And the seasons have been continuing. It says here in this article that people who are extreme in this topic want other people to believe that CO2 is the biggest factor contributing to global warming. But I looked into this as well as what this article is saying, that the primary greenhouse gas responsible for the vast majority of the greenhouse effect is actually water vapor. Carbon dioxide is the second most common greenhouse gas. This is not saying that we're completely innocent and not responsible for the effects of this, but it's not in the proportion that people seem to believe. This claim here says global warming will cause many animals and plants to go extinct. It says receding glaciers, melting ice caps, and other changes are likely to affect a variety of animal and plant species, but based on the fossil records, it appears that many species, like the mammoth, flourished in the changing climates after Noah's flood and eventually went extinct. Humans clearly had nothing to do with these climate changes and extinctions. There's a lot more detail on this website, but to summarize it, the Ice Age in a creationist point of view. Evidence suggests that the created world was warmer than the present world. In fact, the Earth probably did not have permanent ice until centuries after the flood. The polar ice we have today is likely a temporary, indirect result of God's judgment against mankind's sin in the days of Noah. Only after the flood did conditions become right for the accumulation of permanent ice. The Earth cooled rapidly as a result of clouds, volcanic dust, and phytoplankton blooms. Ironically, the warm oceans at the end of the flood were the engine that drove this rapid accumulation of snow. When the oceans cooled sufficiently, snow stopped piling up, but the pile was too thick to stand up under its own weight, so it surged out over the northern half of North America and Europe. Then rather quickly, the ice melted back to the present sheets in Greenland and Antarctica. Model calculations suggest that the buildup of ice in remote regions of eastern Canada and Antarctica may have taken a millennium at most. The surging of the ice and its rapid melting, which most people think of as the Ice Age, may have lasted only a few centuries. And in case anyone doesn't know, a millennium is 1,000 years. Another claim that global warming activists will make is that oceans will rise dramatically in the next century. In Al Gore's documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, he claims that an ice sheet will fall into the sea and will make the sea level rise by 20 feet, which will submerge the homes of 100 million people underwater, and this will happen in the next 50 years. So of course, if it looks all scientific and documentary-like, people will believe it, and it will raise panic, and it will make global warming activists of us. On top of that, StopGlobalWarming.org claims that the ocean level will rise only 6 feet, but there is no proof of that either to back up their claim. But, based on climate models, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change estimates that ocean levels will rise approximately 16 inches during this century, which sounds more believable than 20 feet in 50 years. The next claim is global warming will cause an increasing number of weather catastrophes. So far, it's been blamed for our floods and hurricanes and tornadoes and other extreme weather. This continues to say that extreme weather has never been something out of the ordinary, and that scientists use satellites to keep track of all of this. Though there absolutely is evidence that there have been an increase in hurricanes, a study in the Journal of Nature Geoscience concludes that global warming itself is not the cause of hurricanes. And for those of you who are swearing at me right now for believing in a biblical view on global warming and climate change, here's a non-creationist view. Paleontologist Doug Irwin was questioned about this matter. He is one of the world's experts on the end Permian mass extinction, a volcano that nearly ended all life on Earth 252 million years ago. Remember, this is not a creationist point of view. People believe if we keep going like this the way we do and our climate changing the way that people are saying it's changing, then we're headed for another extinction. When he was asked about this, he said no, he thinks it's junk science. He said many of those making comparisons between the current situation and past mass extinctions don't have a clue about the difference in the nature of the data, much less know how truly awful the mass extinctions recorded in the marine fossil record actually were. He said he doesn't claim that people are not contributing to some of the damage today, but scientists are not being very accurate with what they're saying to the people. And I added these facts for all you global warming activists to really set your teeth on edge. Global temperature changes from the past millennia, according to available data, were often severe and rapid long before man supposedly had any impact at all. Recent recorded history mentions times of noticeable global warming and cooling long before man had any ability to produce industrial emissions. This is before the Industrial Revolution, which was in the 1900s. So what was the excuse in the 1800s? They didn't have the things they had in the 1900s and now. Water vapor, not CO2, is the most influential greenhouse gas. Most of the global temperature increase of the last 100 years occurred before most of the man-made CO2 was produced. You guys can keep reading this for yourselves, if you want.
Yeah, sure. So there you go. So yeah, again.
If you like this video, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Make sure your notification bell is turned on so you can get updates for new videos and answers to your comments.
Educate yourself!